この場の御通行を止め申す。
12 ultra-violent but morbidly beautiful Takashi Miike movie masterpieces that you need to witness. Takashi Miike is a legendary Japanese filmmaker who has attained cult status through years of promising work. He has been involved with over 100 films in his long and prosperous career. The best part is the diversity of his oeuvre. He has done a bit of everything, from morbidly violent movies to family-friendly ones. The prolific auteur might have helmed some cruel and harsh pictures, but it would be wrong to say that his works are depressing. In fact, there are times we have been tempted to call him a feel-good filmmaker. His use of hard-hitting black comedy, his manipulation of lighthearted nihilism, and his uninhibited portrayals of brutality made him stand out from other directors. His works have also courted controversies time and again. Works like Audition and Ichi the Killer are not for the faint-hearted, and during the international premiere of the latter, the audience was handed barf bags to handle some of the unthinkable gore. However, there is no debate regarding his legacy, and he has satisfied both the mainstream audience and the art house fans with his work. In this video, we have assembled 12 of his masterpieces that are sure to give you an unforgettable cinematic experience. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Ichi the Killer, 2001. A Yakuza boss named Enzo goes missing along with 300 million yen, and his gang members launch a massive manhunt. The gang is led by the sadomasochistic Kakihara, and the search soon turns pretty violent. The gang even captures a rival Yakuza member, but soon realizes that they have tortured the wrong man for information. Their search leads them to a sexually repressed young man, Ichi, who possesses impressive martial arts skills. Ichi begins taking down the members of the gang one by one, and Kakihara tries his best to get his hands on Ichi and his handler. Mysterious Ichi is a psychopathic killer as a result of his troubled past, and things boil down to a gritty climax when the ultra-violent killer meets the pain-craving Kakihara. The film is based on the popular manga by Yamamoto and is an intriguing mix of dark humor and sadistic violence. Ichi is one of the most complicated characters that you will come across. He displays strange behavior, crying, and cowering before attacking his victims. This mysterious figure attacks with razor-sharp blades that are strapped to his boot, slicing his enemies into bloody pieces. The sexual dysfunction, which is a part of his violence, is also unique. The director carefully avoided turning the character into an admirable vigilante, framing him instead as an anti-hero. While Miike stayed true to the original manga, he did change aspects of Kakihara's character, transforming the creepy middle-aged man from the comic into a handsome young man for the movie. However, he did retain Kakihara's numerous piercings and facial scars. The acting is surprisingly good, and we were in awe of the abstract climax, which left us shaken. This movie was banned in many countries like Germany and Malaysia because of its extreme violence and cruelty. However, it still developed a cult following over the years and is a must-watch if you want to explore the brilliance of this veteran director. Enzo is a historical samurai and assassin from feudal Japan who was tortured and executed. However, instead of his soul being extinguished, Enzo travels through the space-time continuum, fueled by his rage. He lands in present-day Tokyo and immediately identifies with the homeless population of the city. His refined fighting skills make him a lethal killing machine, and he is still enraged by the terrible treatment he experienced in the past. He faces old foes, and they still hold a grudge against him. Can he get his vengeance this time around? It is easy to misunderstand this as an action-packed sci-fi drama, but the movie signifies so much more. The film takes on deep philosophical questions like the origin of religion, ethics, and law, and offers a rough nihilistic answer to each of them. Enzo encounters various kinds of strange metaphoric characters, and his murderous violence sees them sliced up with his samurai sword. It is fair to suggest that the movie is almost an elaborate thesis on mankind, although the exact message in the narrative is debatable. Those who are familiar with the words of Takashi Miike will be aware of the tendency of the director to deliver cinematic violence and sexuality in such a way that the audience is almost made to feel like a sadist. There are some innovative action sequences to spice things up, and the action occasionally stops for some soulful music. The symbolism is so powerful that every scene is artistically justified. This might be the closest you will come to understanding Miike's socio-political views, and this dynamic work of art deserves to be hailed as one of his finest works. Three Extremes. Miike directed the third segment called The Box. The movie followed the format of its predecessor, titled 3, putting forth segments in a gripping horror anthology. The third segment, titled Box, was directed by Takashi Miike, and it had the creepiest narrative of the lot. The plot revolved around Kyoko, who was a young novelist with a past as a circus performer. When she was young, she worked in the circus with her twin sister Shoko and their benefactor Higata. However, she began to be plagued by thoughts that Higata favored Shoko, and the jealousy made her lock Shoko in a box. She then accidentally set the box on fire and presently suffers from severe guilt, haunted by nightmares of her horrendous deed. When life takes her back to the circus one more time, a nasty surprise awaits her. The twist at the end of the story will change your perceptions entirely. This movie was a treat for horror fans, and each segment was like the perfect dissertation on spooky stories. Whilst the other two stories, titled Dumplings and Cut, were pretty impressive, Box certainly had the edge with its lavish sets and costumes. It is more of an artistic endeavor, and you won't be able to look away from the screen for a single moment. Yes, there could have been more explanation in the plot, but that's not how Takashi Miike operates. The concept of terrifying nightmares becoming a reality makes for an intelligent project, and the clever twist that complicates the boundaries of reality and imagination makes the film all the more enticing. The psychosexual aspect in the story proved most unsettling. Just how much of Kyoko's visions are real and how much is a dream? You have to watch this fine specimen of horror anthology to get the answers. As the Gods Will, 2014. Shun Takahata is just another ordinary teenager going through his high school life when it all changes for him in a jiffy. He realizes that he is part of a group of students who are forced to participate in a series of games, where the penalty for losing is death. He cannot figure out who is setting up the games, but he must keep winning to survive and to protect Ichika, a childhood friend. The mysterious game of death gets worse, and a classmate of theirs, Takeru, seems to enjoy the chance to get other students killed through the games. Will Takahata and his friends survive the final rounds of the game of death? This supernatural horror flick is based on a manga series of the same name, and Takashi Miike embraced the challenge as only he can. The end result is a fascinating narrative with some occasional dark humor thrown in. It is a gory live-action version of the manga, and it mostly stays true to the source material. As you would expect, there are a couple of gruesome sequences that are signature Miike, and the philosophical elements are omnipresent throughout the plot. Besides the gore, the social commentary and ironies will keep you hooked into the story. The shift in tone over the course of the film is surprising. From moments of calm and quiet, you are suddenly thrown into something altogether more explicit. We have to stress the brilliance of the cinematography and color schemes that have been used for this movie. The acting department is probably the only chink in the armor, even though the main players were pretty decent. This creepy and entertaining movie will restore your faith in the art of filmmaking. The Great Yokai War, 2005. A young boy is troubled with his disturbing family life after his parents get divorced. He moves into a small town and somehow gets into the middle of a great spirit war. He is chosen as the Kirin Rider, who is the protector of all good things and must team up with the friendly ancient yokai spirits as they engage in an apocalyptic war against the evil spirits. Most of the spirits and creatures are derived from Japanese folklore, and the young boy must fight to protect the friendly spirits and free the world from the oppression of the evil ones. Will he stay true to his title? The talented Takashi Miike unleashes the best of his imagination for this movie, presenting an adorable tale of a young boy turned world savior. This is one of his very first family films, and it somewhat comes across as a fairy tale. The elements of darkness and cynicism present in Miike's other movies have been kept to a bare minimum here, and the director made good use of a decent budget, buying in some quality CGI to realize the creatures. However, it would be silly to expect something as seamless as a Hollywood-style extravaganza. The monsters range from cheesy to spectacular, and with hundreds of them on screen, this is no easy task. This film has some direct references and serves as a tribute to the works of Shigeru Mitsuki, the manga artist responsible for bringing the tradition of yokai tales into the modern comic book medium. The critics of Takashi Miike, who called him a one-trick pony, were silenced with this fascinating project. The cartoonish vibe in the production is hard to miss. It will remind you of Miyazaki in certain places. While the plot might seem predictable, there are surprising twists and turns that will keep you on the edge of your seat. There are some truly frightening images, though Miike strongly believed that the kids could handle that much fear. If you want to witness the other side of the fascinating director, the side that shies away from shocking violence and delivers entertaining, kid-friendly content, this movie is the one to go for. 13 Assassins, 2010. This film is set in feudal Japan, where an evil lord Naretsugu Matsudaira has been tormenting and oppressing the people. As samurai leader, Shinzaemon Shimada is head of the Namiya clan, and a tortured woman requests that he eliminates the tyrannical lord. Her arms, legs, and tongue had been severed by Naretsugu, and when she writes with her forearm demanding justice, the samurai warrior is moved. He gathers a force of 13 fierce men who prepare to launch a surprise attack on the evil lord and his army of 200 samurai. Will the suicide mission result in success? This movie is a remake of the 1963 version of the same story, which was based on historical events. Naretsugu was a real historical figure and was the lord of a region in the Kansai area of Japan. Takashi Miike takes on the samurai genre with no effort, and this turned out to be yet another masterpiece from the veteran director. The narrative is full of interesting characters, but there is a simplistic touch to the story that makes things easy to comprehend. The picture is a fine example of how Miike can combine elements of a mainstream flick and a cult hit. There are trademark instances of violence too, and the bizarre sadistic fetishes of the evil lord, and the gore is often shocking and unexpected. The storyline never loses track of the samurai ideals and their duties, and the director continues to push his messages throughout the movie. A special mention must go to the cast, which featured some of the biggest names in Japanese cinema. Even the supporting actors played their roles to perfection. There is some breathtaking cinematography, especially of the scenes in the forest. The battle sequence is almost 45 minutes long, and it is easily one of the best samurai battles we have seen on screen. Overall, it is an action-packed joyride with all the elements required to cook up a blockbuster. Audition, 1999. Shigeharu Aoyama is a widower who has raised his son alone ever since his wife passed away. After grieving the loss of his spouse for years, he agrees to his son's suggestion that he should remarry. However, he considers himself to be too shy to approach women and figures out an interesting way to find a new partner. Aoyama's friend, who is a producer, helps him stage a fake audition where he could screen several women. Aoyama becomes obsessed with a gorgeous young lady named Asami Yamazaki. But as he falls head over heels for her, he doesn't realize the deep dark secret that she is hiding. An unknown side to her character will bring unthinkable doom into their life. This is Takashi Miike at his finest, as the director weaves a trap of psychological horror for the audience. The creepy, disturbing, and realistic storyline is sure to send a shudder down your spine. The characters have been carefully nurtured and developed, and the actress who played the role of Asami, Eihi Shina, was just brilliant as such a complicated character. Some of her scenes will remain forever imprinted in the mind of the viewer. From a sweet and adorable story, it turns into a stomach-churning, nerve-tangling thriller that will make even the bravest paranoid. The torture and punishment are almost nightmarish and not for the faint-hearted. The final few minutes of the movie will make you squirm in your seat, and highly skilled cinematographers have also worked their magic in these scenes. It is unbelievable that such a movie was shot in only 3 weeks, and directors like Quentin Tarantino and Rob Zombie hail it as one of the best horror flicks of all time. This movie gave Miike international recognition, and all we could say is that he deserved it more than anybody for such terrific work.
You can't do it.
Imprint 2006. Do you remember the horror anthology TV series Masters of Horror? This was the 13th episode of the first season, and there was a long delay in airing it because of its graphic content. The story is set in the mid-1800s when a young American journalist, Christopher, returns to Japan looking for the Japanese prostitute whom he loved. He had promised to come back to her, but had failed to do so all these years.
No. A very special girl. Her name is Komomo.
His search takes him to a strange island off the coast, where a deformed prostitute tells him all about the horrifying story of her life and of his lady love. Thus begins a tale of excruciating pain and cruelty that will leave you unsettled.
I will tell you my story.
Once you watch this movie, you will understand why it was banned from American TV. It is easily one of the most disturbing things you will see, and it is clear that Miike has a clear disregard for the limitations placed on TV content. The torture sequences are hard to handle, and the perverted sub-themes are simply too explicit. Some scenes are so disturbing that they verge on sickening, and the story that will leave you scarred long after the credits roll. We can never get over the gruesome and detailed abortion sequence or the part where a girl's fingers and gums are used as a pincushion. The underrated actor Billy Drago, who plays the mysterious American journalist, has done a fabulous job in this movie, and the sublime camera work ensures the disturbing aesthetics. The climactic twist will simultaneously surprise and disgust. Do not let the broken English stop you from basking in the haunting atmosphere Miike uses to realize this endearing tale. Ozu 2003. Minami is a member of a notorious Yakuza clan and is ordered to bump off a senior colleague, Ozaki. Minami is reluctant to do so because he deeply respects Ozaki for having saved his life in the past. However, of late, Ozaki has been losing his mind and has become a liability for the gang. The leader wants him dead, and Minami has no choice but to obey the orders. However, when the corpse disappears under mysterious circumstances, Ozaki is stuck in a twisted and horrifying conundrum. His fate hangs in the balance, and the surreal journey will provide all the answers. Takashi has gone on record to say that the works of David Cronenberg, Paul Verhoeven, and Akira Kurosawa have inspired him. In this movie, you can actually observe this influence in some of the scenes. This outstanding psychodrama is a realistic portrayal of fear and anxiety, with dilemma of the protagonist forcing him to act against his will. The dark humor is subtle, but it is amusing to watch a serious story with such comedic breaks. The narrative is backed by some fine performances, and the surreal bits are enough to give Freud a headache. The music is perfectly suited for the plot, and the creepy ending song will break your heart. Even if you are a seasoned fan of such movies, the climactic twist will leave you in shock. The only possible flaw in this terrific work of art is the duration, which could have been shortened a bit. However, you won't exactly be checking your watch during the thrill ride that unfolds before your eyes. Dead or Alive, 1999. Jojima is a tough and persistent detective who is after the notorious Japanese mafia. A Chinese gang is also at loggerheads with their Japanese counterpart as they try to establish their supremacy in the underworld and control the drug trade from Taiwan. As the two gangs fight it out, Detective Jojima stands between them in victory. Eventually, the confrontation also gets a personal touch, and it all boils down to a final showdown. Dead or Alive is certainly one of Miike's most enjoyable and fun movies, and will likely leave you speechless. The movie features a thrilling opening sequence, though after the breathtaking first 10 minutes, the plot settles down into a conventional crime story before reverting to something more berserk at the end. The personal troubles of the heroic cop add to the complexity of the plot, and the underworld politics make for an intriguing watch. You will find the director's signature style here in some of the perverse elements in the movie, such as the scene where a gangster kills a girl by drowning her in a pool of her own poop. Dead or Alive is cinematically stunning, showcasing long shots with few cuts, which adds to the glorious visual experience. The violence is often cartoonish, but the brutality is hard to miss. As in all his works, the director doesn't forget symbolism, and we supremely enjoy the open moral questions Miike posed through the actions of the characters. His harsh storytelling methods are at work once more, and the squeamish can go watch a Disney princess movie instead. The happiness of the Katakuris 2001. The Katakuri family had a history of failures for generations, and eventually they moved to a desolate location in the middle of nowhere. The news that an important road would be built through the region prompts them to set up a guest house in hope of some good business. However, once the customers start coming in, each one of them seems to die under mysterious circumstances. The family buries the bodies in the backyard, hoping to avoid trouble, but soon more and more bodies pile up. What is the mystery of the deaths and the secret of happiness for the Katakuri family? The plot is loosely based on a Korean film called The Quiet Family, but the idea to make it into a creepy musical is completely original. The absurd mix of horror, black comedy, and musical makes this a unique project. The use of claymation is smartly done, a decision which helped in dealing with the low budget. Even though zombies appear a short way into the movie, the violence is never overdone. In fact, the zombies are seen for just a couple of scenes before the story strays away from the aspect. The actors, especially the ones who play the Katakuris, were pretty good, and they hold their own even through the silly musical routines. This is by far one of the most enjoyable horror flicks we have ever come across, as it is more of a spoof on the entire musical genre. The scenes where the characters break into a random song after something terrible happens will leave you in fits of laughter. The only minor issue with the movie is its slow-paced nature. However, we see no reason to miss out on this cheerful and uncanny horror musical that promises a wonderful time for the viewer. Fudo, the New Generation. Riki Fudo manages to lead a double life as a student in high school and a leader of an organized crime group. He has his own team of young assassins who are armed with advanced weapons and aim to control the underworld. However, Fudo is not lusting for power and is actually fighting for revenge. His opponent is none other than his own father, who had killed Fudo's elder brother many years ago to settle a dispute. Riki commences an assassination campaign against the important members of his father's gang, with his father as the ultimate goal. Meanwhile, Fudo's father sends an undercover agent to pose as the gym's teacher in Riki's high school and to spy on him, who will emerge victorious in the clash between father and son. This film is regarded as one of Takashi Miike's masterpieces, and for a good reason. This is one of the movies that introduced his expertise to the Western audience, and since then, the floodgates have opened for him in terms of opportunities. The narrative is over the top at some parts, but overall it maintains originality and seriousness. The clever use of symbolism makes the narrative very interesting, and the action-packed plot also explores the sensitive relationship between two men who cannot change their violent natures. They are lethal enemies, but at the same time they share many qualities. The story also dives into the human psyche, the horrifying side of it. We love the dynamic climax, which defines the theme of the movie pretty effectively. There is a lot of violence, and the assassination scenes are shockingly brutal. The concept of little children being trained to become ruthless killers is somewhat exploitative and can be off-putting for some viewers. However, if you can brave the harsh bits, this is a gem of a movie that must be on your watch list. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.
だ。